I realise my need for Facebook and YouTube in getting my message out there, and sometimes feel a bit wronged, maybe not as strongly as you, but certainly I do certainly feel that my reach is getting artificially reduced. So you sell millions of books. You know, you've got 750,000 followers, I think, on Facebook. And obviously,
I'll stop you there.
Okay, no, please.
3 years ago, I had about 750,000 followers on Facebook.
Yeah.
All these years later, with interest in my work exploding, I have about 750,000 followers on Facebook.
So something's going on there, you think?
That's the algorithms at work and how the suppression operates.
Yeah. And how do you deal with inside or balance this paradox of these being a great platform for you to get your message and your work out to the world, yet feeling controlled and limited by them?
Well, it's.
I'm going to take notes myself here because I feel the same thing.
Well, so. it's a simple reply, really. First of all, they're becoming less and less of a good platform as the suppression contracts what is getting circulated. But you use the system to expose the system, because the system has the networks of communication. So as best, and dominates them. So as best you can, you have to use the system to expose the system. But in terms of entrepreneurs, and it is starting to happen, you know, what do they say? What's that line? Necessity is the mother of invention, old saying. Entrepreneurs, if you like, who are genuine, who believe in freedom of speech, they have a fantastic opportunity here and can make an enormous contribution to human freedom by developing platforms, not least video platforms, and developing communication platforms to replace these system-controlled operations, so that we don't have to use the system to bring the system down only. We have our own free platforms, non-censored platforms that can communicate it. And the more then that you have censorship and suppression in the official media networks, the more people will gravitate towards those that are censorship free. And it will become counterproductive then for the corporate giants in Silicon Valley to go down the road they're going, because they'll just be replaced. Because there is, I mean, I've been on this journey now for nearly 30 years. When I started out, no one wanted to know. I was just laughed at in the street and everything. On this world tour, speaking tour, since the summer of 2016, all over the world, literally, I have seen a dramatic transformation, both in the numbers of people that want to look at the world in another way and see that maybe this official narrative is not exactly how it is or anything like it is. And not only that, the kind of people within the system, people that a few years ago you thought, well, they'd never be, you know, in a position to think differently or question, but they are. There is a changing awareness going on that the world is not like they thought it was, and the system has told them from cradle since they were born to how things are. Because when you look at a human life, it is a download of the official version of everything. That's what it is. This is why vast numbers of people have no other filter for their view of reality, self, world events, than the information they receive from the mainstream media and mainstream everything.
All right, you guys, welcome back to another episode of Reading Verbatim. Today's selection I'm taking from David Icke. For those who aren't familiar, David Icke is, I want to say conspiracy theorist, but I feel like that's a bad word these days. Let's say truth seeker in regards to things in regards like fascism, communism, right up to the more kookier reptilian agenda, interdimensional space-time theory, the prison warders, the matrix, all that stuff. I did have an opportunity to speak with his son on Iconic Media. I was originally reaching out to him, didn't even realize that his son had a show, and let's just say, like father, like son, they are very similar in their approach and how they speak and how they're handling these things. They seem to have a really good team put together over at Iconic Media, and I'll drop a link below for you guys if you ever want to go check out the episode. It is a paid subscription service. I'm not sure if they have a free trial, but at the very least, you guys should go check it out. It's like a super pseudo spiritual Netflix, and it's just a lot of really, really great topics that I feel like need to be heard. But like I said, David Icke is someone I've always long appreciated, as long as I've enjoyed Alex Jones. And I thought today that I'd take the selection from "And the Truth Shall Set You." All right, and today I thought I'd take a selection from "And the Truth Shall Set You Free." Can't talk today. By David Icke, and I'm taking today's reading from chapter 14, Psychological Fascism. The sophisticated exercise of control utilizes the ability to keep people oppressed yet content. Much better to make them think it was their idea than go to the gallows. The underlying theme of all you have read is the manipulation of the human mind. You cannot control billions of people with tanks in the streets and soldiers at the door. You can only do it by divide and rule, and by programming the mass consciousness or the public opinion into believing that what you want to do is a good idea or the only option. This is crucial to both understanding how the manipulation works and thinking on a more streetwise vibration, which will make it far more difficult for us to be misled. For example, say that you want to introduce cameras in the streets, an armed and more authoritarian police force, and the erosion of personal freedoms. You don't want the public to oppose these policies. Indeed, you want them to demand that you introduce them. What do you need for this to happen? More high-profile violent crime, which creates enormous fear within the community. Achieve that, and people will be knocking on your door demanding that you put cameras into their streets and to give more guns and powder to the police. Problem, reaction, solution. And what better way to induce more crime than to create a society of haves and have-nots dependent on welfare payments and then start dismantling that welfare state? You give people a choice of going without basic needs or of taking someone else's money and property. And when they do the latter, the victims of the crime and the mass of the people who see the reports of the crime demand that something must be done. All aspects of society are being used to promote this mental coup d'etat. The education system is not there to inform children and young people. It is there to indoctrinate them. The same with the media and within advertising. The tax-exempt foundations coordinated the elite's education policy in the United States schools and university, and the United Kingdom is in the United Kingdom, this is done in part by keeping a secret clique known as the All Souls Group. This meets 3 times a year at most appropriately Rhodes House of Oxford University. Such education policies are designed to turn out clones of the system and world government supporters, although the overwhelming majority of people in the teaching profession will not realize this. I included in the Robots Rebellion an extract from a document found apparently by accident in 1986 called Silent Weapons for a Quiet War. Another version is reported to have been in the hands of U.S. naval intelligence in '69. It is a wonderful explanation of the technique of mass brainwashing. The version that I found was inside an IBM photocopier bought at a secondhand sale in America, and it describes a policy of mass mind control. This lengthy and detailed document was dated 1979, but it outlines a policy that has been implemented since the 1950s. The document says, the Quiet War was declared by the international elite at a meeting held in 1954. The Bilderberg Group first met in 1954. It is likely that the methods laid out in the documents will be inspired by the Tavistock Institute of Human Relations in London and its interconnecting offshoots. Here's a flavor of the content. It says, experience has proven that the simplest method of securing a silent weapon and gaining control of the public is to keep them undisciplined and ignorant of basic systems principles on one hand, while keeping them confused, disorganized, and distracted with matters of no real importance on the other. This is achieved by the following. 1. Disengaging their minds, sabotaging their mental activities, providing a low-quality program of public education in mathematics, systems design, and economics, and discouraging technical creativity. 2. Engaging their emotions, increasing their self-indulgence and their indulgence in emotional and physical activities by A. Unrelenting emotional affronts and attacks, such as mental and emotional rape, by way of a constant barrage of sex, violence, and wars in the media, especially within TV and newspapers. B, giving them what they desire in excess, or junk food for thought, and depriving them of what they really need. Or C, rewriting history and law, subjecting the public to the deviant creation, thus being able to shift their thinking from personal needs to highly fabricated outside priorities. These preclude their interest in and discovery of the silent weapons of social automation technology. The general rule is that there is a profit in confusion. The more confusion, the more profit. Therefore, the best approach is to create problems and then offer solutions. In summary, media. Keep the adult public attention diverted away from the real social issues and captivated by matters of no real importance. Schools. Keep the young public ignorant of real mathematics, real economics, real law, and real history. Entertainment. Keep the public entertainment below 6th grade level. Work. Keep the public busy, busy, busy with no time to think, back on the farm with all the other animals. That doesn't describe today's world, does it? All the main aspects of the coup d'etat are there, and we can see the strategy at work every day. When a government is planning to introduce legislation against a targeted group as part of the plan to enforce conformity and to remove freedoms, the process of softening up public opinion against that targeted group begins in months, sometimes years, before there is even a hint of new laws. The idea is to turn public opinion against a target group through propaganda and engineered events. When the legislation is finally presented, the potential opposition is already either greatly reduced or destroyed altogether. Take the example of the criminal justice bill introduced by the British government in 1994. It was a dreadful piece of work with a tremendous strike against basic freedoms, but it sailed through Parliament with virtually all party support. One of its many targets were the travelers, the groups of people who lived in mobile homes in many kinds and move between various places throughout the year. They have been dubbed New Age travelers by the media. The travelers are not perfect. Who is? But it will be enlightening to look at how they were treated. In the year to 18 months before the criminal justice bill was announced, you could hardly open a newspaper or watch TV in the news without seeing a story which suggested that the travelers were a problem in need of solution. Police were stopping and harassing the traveler convoys at the borders. Conflicts were breaking out between travelers and police as the anger and frustration mounted. All was captured and broadcast on main television news bulletins. Agents provocateur connected to the British intelligence were there and stirring things up just as the cameras were on the spot, in the way that such agencies operate all over the world. Once negative events and propaganda have been projected at public opinion, out go the opinion polling organizations with their clipboards. The people who ask the questions on the street don't know what they are involved in. They are just asking the questions they are told to and paid to ask. But opinion polls are not there to measure public opinion so the people can be given what they desire. They are there to direct public opinion, often using loaded questions to attract the desired reply. Tell people that 80% of the population believe something, and those of the sheep, bah bah, mentality will quickly conform and believe the same. 80% of people cannot be wrong, can they? Oh, yes, they can, if they have given their minds away. The other role of opinion polls is to check if the propaganda against a target group is working. Once the opinion polls say that the sufficient majority now believe the target group is a problem and something must be done, the legislation, or the solution, is taken out of the file and put before Parliament. This approach has another advantage in that the potential political opposition, what little there is, fear the electoral consequences of opposing laws to solve a problem about which the public has now been programmed to believe that something must be done. Therefore, highly controversial legislation like the criminal justice bill, which removes basic freedoms, goes through Parliament and into law virtually on the nod. Once this bill was making its way into law, suddenly all the travelers or problem stories disappeared and at the time of this writing have never reappeared. They will only return when even more harsh legislation against them is being planned. Until then, public opinion will go on being softened up to accept legislation against other target groups on the elite's hit list, and the public will go on reacting like robots in exactly the way required, unless we choose to take control of our own minds. Organizations like the Tavistock Institute of Human Relations and their brothers and sisters in the US, such as the Stanford Research Institute and the RAND Corporation, research into how people will react individually and collectively to events, changes, and buzzwords. It was Tavistock, according to this research that I've read, which devised the policy of future shocks. the means by which the collective human mind is bombarded with so many changes, events, and contradicting information that it overloads it, switches off, and becomes subservient. This is happening all over the world today, most obviously in the United States and Japan, where the population is being given one event after another to fill them with fear and insecurity. The aim is to destabilize Japanese society and break its resistance to fundamental change. Many of the so-called spontaneous trends that are taken on by the young are introduced by these and other organizations and then hyped into a frenzy by advertising and the controlled media. People talk about the latest craze, and very few stop to ask, where did this start and who was behind it? We hear about the craze that's sweeping America, and that's about all. The flower power period of the 1960s was hijacked and directed by the same mind manipulation force. The CIA and British intelligence were experimenting with the effects of the drug LSD in the 1950s before it was unleashed on the market and destroyed any possibility of substantial positive change emerging from that time. In 1953, the CIA commandeered the entire supply of LSD from Swiss manufacturers, Sandoz, which was owned by S.G. Warburg of London. Later, they did the same with Eli Lilly, and when it began to produce LSD in the United States. People were so doped and duped that they thought LSD was a weapon of freedom. Some still do. I'm not sure the CIA and British intelligence had that in mind somehow.
The greatest form of control is where you think you're free when you're being fundamentally manipulated and dictated to. One form of dictatorship is being in a prison cell and you can see the bars and touch it. The other one is sitting in a prison cell but you can't see the bar, you think you're free.
What the human race is suffering from is mass hypnosis. We are being hypnotized by people like this. Newsreaders, politicians, teachers, lecturers.
We are in a country and in a world that is being run by unbelievably sick people. The chasm between what we're told is going on and what is really going on is absolutely enormous.
It's like we all know what's going down, but no one's saying shit what happened to the home of the brave. These motherfuckers, they controlling us now, and no one's talking about how they made us modern day slaves. And everybody's just walking around, head in the clouds, and won't awaken to a dead in the grave. By then it's too late, we need to be ready to raise up. Welcome to the end of days.
Everybody is slaves, only some are aware that the government releasing poison in the air. That's the reason I collect so many guns in my lair. I ain't never caught slipping, never underprepared. Yeah, they shade sign army, they just spray it proudly. George Bush, the grandson of Alistair Crowley. They want you to believe the lie that the enemy's Saudi. The enemy ain't Saudi, the enemy around me. It's fluoride in the water, but nobody know that. It's also a prominent ingredient in Prozac. For real? How could any government bestow that upon people who believe in political throwback? That's not all that I'm here to present you. I know about the Black Pope and Solomon's Temple. Yeah. About the Vatican assassins and how they will get you. And how they clone Barack Hussein Obama in a test tube.
It's like we all know what's going down, but no one's saying shit what happened to the home of the brave. These motherfuckers, they controlling us now, and no one's talking about how they made us modern day slaves. And everybody's just walking around, head in the clouds, and won't awaken to a dead in the grave. By then it's too late, we need to be ready to raise up. Welcome to the end.
Whoever built the pyramids had knowledge of electrical power, and you know that that's the information that they suppress and devour. Who you think the motherfuckers that crashed in the tower? Who you think that made it turn into ash in an hour? The same ones that invaded Jerome, the ones that never told you about the skeletons on the moon. Yeah, the ones that poison all the food you consume, the ones that never told you about the Mount Vesuvius tombs. The bird flu is a lie, the swan flu is a lie. Why would that even come as a surprise? Yeah, the beast has war, your wolf made you die. It caused cancer and it cost a lot of people their lives. Do y'all know about Bohemian Grove? How the world leaders sacrificing children in robes? Lucifer is God in the public school system. I suggest you open up your ears and you listen.
It's like we all know what's going down, but no one's saying shit what happened to the home of the brave. These motherfuckers, they controlling us now, and no one's talking about how they made us modern day slaves. And everybody's just walking around, head in the clouds, and won't awaken to a dead in the grave. By then it's too late, we need to be ready to raise up. Welcome to the end of days.
The greatest hypnotist on planet Earth is a oblong box in the corner of the room. It is constantly telling us what to believe is real.
If you can persuade them that what they see with their eyes is what there is to see, you got them. because they'll laugh in the face of an explanation that portrays the bigger picture